Good afternoon, everyone. So, all are you expecting to write mains this year? I'm saying expecting to write mains this year. So, I can assume one more thing, that you all are wizard of political science. Can I assume this? I mean, you all have gone through the basic syllabus. You all know the basic concept of political sciences. Okay. And maybe a few of students has earlier appeared also with the political science, and the major issue was related with the score one. So if you are expecting to write mains this year, first suggestion is this one: don't study anything new for this year. Whatever you have studied, continue with the same reading. Whatever the book is this, whether it is a IGNOU or whether it is a notes or whether it is a graduation level book or it is a post graduation level book, because in most of the books the basic concept and understanding is almost same. So it is useless to go another book and study the entire book and get hardly 5 or 6% something new over there, and that is not going to affect your marks in a drastic way. It may be if you are scoring 180, so it will be like 185, but still it is not going to affect it drastically. One thing I should suggest, and now I am talking about what new one should study, that is basically related to value addition. Whatever you are studying, there should be a value addition. Now, in value addition, what should be done? That's the very basic question. In value addition, what should be done? Look, if you go with the syllabus, you can find syllabus is little bit older one. It has been made in 2000 and it has not been revised in last 15 years. But what UPSC started doing there, they started asking about all the new development in the arena of political science. Sometimes we found that it is not mentioned in the syllabus over there, but it is still UPSC has asked this question. The answer is very simple. It is a real time to review the syllabus. Without reviewing, UPSC started asking this question. You can find certain topics also in syllabus which has not been asked by UPSC from many years also. So it all reflects that you need to little bit improve the syllabus. You need to go for some new things which is part and parcel of your syllabus. So technically what I say, it is all about extension of the basic syllabus. Extension of the basic syllabus. For example, Marxism has been given in your syllabus, but neo-Marxism has not been explicitly mentioned in the entire syllabus. But few thinkers of neo-Marxism should be properly studied. If you study the Gramscian idea, so Gramscian idea is further extended by whom? By Herbert Marcuse, giving the concept of one-dimensional man. Apart from that, Nisbet you can find another thinker. Dramist Albert Camus has written extensively on the idea of Gramscian over there. My point is that these are the new development in the same theory, new Marxist extension over there. And it is highly important to go for such value addition, whatever you are studying. Like in thinkers, they have clearly mentioned only in liberal tradition, John Locke is there, Mill is there, but Bentham is missing. It is not in the thinkers over there. But last 2 years they have asked question on Bentham. Neorealism as a separate topic has been given, but the neoliberalist thinkers has not been mentioned. So what we studied about Milton or Hayek, it is in just a simple detail. I would suggest that if you add 5 or 6 new thinkers, full-fledged thinker with value addition, that is going to help you to extend the syllabus over there. One more topic, multiculturalism. It is not mentioned in the entire syllabus, but every year you can find question directly or indirectly coming from the multiculturalism over there. I won't say last year question, this Bhikkhu Parekh question was related to the multiculturalism, but technically Bhikkhu Parekh is one of the well-known name in the multiculturalism over there. So multiculturalism, whether it is mentioned in the syllabus or not, it should be properly studied. Apart from that, you can talk about like feminist approach. Although feminism has been mentioned over there, but feminism has not been mentioned in paper 2 section A. I am talking about IR theoretical part. But I believe this time they can ask about the feminist notion of international relationship. They have many times asked about the feminist critique of international relation, feminist critique of realism, feminist critique of neoliberalism. I tell you, these two ideology, feminism and multiculturalism, it is reconstruction in the era, in the structure of the political science is there. Because apart from these two, most of the political science terminology has been accepted by all the ideology. If you say Marxism, if you say socialism, they all accepted the established political science theories and terminologies. These two different ideas are there, ideologies are there, they started challenging them. Suppose multiculturalism is, it openly challenges the idea of human rights, and they have given a new debate of Asian value system debate, and it was all because they challenged that it was mainly dominated by West or the individual value, the entire human right tradition. And the feminism started talking about that big portion, of humanity has been omitted in the political science over there. And they started talking about insertion of a new terminology. One of the basic critique of feminism to the entire political science is that there are words which has been chosen to express the different concept of political science. It is more or less male dominated, or it's suited to the male nature over there. So there should be redefining of the entire political science, making it exclusive, inserting it the other part, that the feminist ideas and notion over there. The new thing I'm talking about, green theories, or whenever we talk about the environmental aspect of the political science, all the new books containing a separate chapter of green politics, they are talking about green theory of political science. This green theory of political science more or less confined towards the, using the feminist term over there. My idea is simple one. While instead of studying something new, just focused on some value addition, and whatever you have studied, continue with the same thing. Don't change anything. Don't go for any new book over there. The basic idea is, so you can extend the thinkers. As I said, there is a very good book basically. I don't know it is available in the market or not, but there is a book by O.P. Bakshi, and it is basically commentaries on Western political. The name of the book is Commentaries on Western Political Thinker. Commentaries on Western political thinkers. Here you need not to go through the entire book. Here you have to focus the further development that has come in that particular theory, or in that particular you can say thinker's idea. Just if you're studying, although Hannah Arendt is mentioned in our syllabus, but whatever the Aristotle concept was there, it has been again adopted by the Hannah Arendt over there. Now there is a new thinkers. They have further extended the idea of Hannah Arendt, and they are talking about how this mass society is depreciating the political culture, or declining the political culture, and there are chances of totalitarian regimes are increasing, or dictatorship of increasing, and it further led to the movement to go for tools of direct democracy, so the masses can control the political regimes over there. So these are the new things over there. My suggestion is that whatever the basic content you have studied, if you just value added, these extensions are there, then it will be easy for you to complete your answer over there. I'll start with basics one. In answer writing, what should be the first part of your answer? Whatever the question is that, what should be the first part of your answer? I would suggest the first part should be the basic understanding, what we technically call conceptual understanding of the subject. Conceptual understanding of the subject is the first part. Now in conceptual understanding of the subject, there is a two specific part is there. The first part is basically meaning of the terms which has been used. Meaning of the term which has been used in concept. I have given a paper basically, you can find, in which the term domination is there, and other term in very first question, hegemony is there. And you can find term hegemony, everybody is aware of that, it has been used by Gramsci. But in terms of domination, the term domination, it was initially used by Marx when he talked about how with the different structures bourgeoisie dominate the you can say a proletariat class, and later on how the same idea has been extended. Like I have found in many answer writing books, like Gramsci deviated from the basic idea of the Marx. It never deviated from the basic idea of the Marx over there. He just extended the same idea of domination, how he said that how the civil society or the superstructure basically further consolidated the idea, but it is in a different form. My point is that first one should know the correct meaning of the terminology which has been used, and in the same way you should use the same terminology in a correct way in the answer. For example, the three terms I am giving: class in itself, class for itself, and consciousness. And three terms I am using: class in itself, class for itself, and consciousness. These three terms are very much technically correlated with each other. The first term is class in itself. When added consciousness, it becomes class for itself over there. By these three terms, you can define that how revolution can be occur, or how revolution or people could be aware over there. Now, while writing answer, frankly speaking, I have checked from 3-4 years many copies. Rarely I found that these terms class in itself or class for itself has been ever used over there. Consciousness word I have found, but not these two technical terms over there. And if you know the technical meaning of class in itself or class for itself, while writing about the Marxist notion of revolution, you can define it like class in itself. I mean, the proletariat is in class in itself, plus consciousness is ultimately converted into class for itself, and then further it will further lead to the revolution. Now, just after the revolution, there is one more concept. Again, this question has been asked: Bonapartism. There is a big confusion about what is Bonapartism, and most of the time in books you can find either one line or two line has been written over there. But in what sense Karl Marx used the word Bonapartism? He was actually denoting a transition point. Let me explain in another way. Why Marx says that after the Marxist revolution there will be socialism, or there will be dictatorship of proletariat before coming communism. He made very much clear, it is not in one shot once the revolution will happen and communism will come, and whatever the idea he has given, like everybody will get according to that is the different part. But before that, what he is trying to say that it is just because capitalism is ruling the society, so the value system of the society, institution of the society, as well as you can say a political institution, it will be all having a capitalist working culture over there. I mean, if suppose, just I am giving example, in one night in India Marxist revolution is there, we can't change the mindset of the people who think that the ultimate target of life, or after they study and everything, I will fetch good money and I will travel all around the world, have a bungalow and Ferrari. I mean, I am talking about this is what the capitalist value system. He said that if revolution happened, that doesn't mean that it will change the mindset of the people. It will in one shot eradicate all the social institutions, political institution, economic institution, and their working culture over. It took hundred and thousand of the years basically to get shaped over there. And during this transition period, the capitalist value will gradually eliminate all these institution and value system over there. If you talk about why in communism freedom has not been given, because if the freedom will be given in the initial state, they will propagate the idea what they learned from their idea, and you can connect it well. Why Gramsci always said that revolution is not ready until and unless revolution is from the above. It means that institutional change is not there, or people are not ready for the revolution. So change should become in the mind of the people, and that will lead gradually to change in the institution over there. So this Bonapartism term has been used for this transition period, and Marx says that as the transition will happen, capitalism will gradually lose its grip over the institution, social institution, political institution, ideas, and communism will gradually started taking the control in between these institutions, these values. It will relatively independent and autonomous. this stage of relatively being independent, autonomous, working, the specific term Bonapartism means over there. Similarly, you can find if these institutions are handled by bureaucracy, for sometimes bureaucracy will behave like without political masters. Their independent character will reflect over that. I'm just connecting it. Milovan Djilas, he is a communist writer, neo-Marxist writer, and he's talked about that communism in Russia has taken the idea of new class, and this new class was basically this this bureaucratic class over there. Because the transition of Bonapartism has been never completed. So the transitional part where all the political, economic, social system and the values is still in the transition and the struggle for control is going on, during this entire period their behavior is more or less autonomous, and in that period, in this autonomous period, there is ample of chance for those who are handling the institution to take over that. If successfully transition has happened, then communism will be over there. If not, then definitely there will be some other form, and you can find why in time of Lenin the things were very different in Russia, and Stalin when he announced finally socialism in one country over there. In fact, the idea of internationalism, what was the basic idea of Marxism, has been partially, I would say that left by Stalin when we talk about that first we'll consolidate in the Russian system over there. Marx never assumed that even after the independence so much massacre and tight policy is required, but it happens. My point is that the technical term should be very clear. Conceptual clarity should be is must while writing your answer. If the conceptual problem is there, it's not very much clear, then definitely you will misuse the term. And what happens normally, if the clarity is not there, we refrain to use the technical term. We try to write in a general way our answer. We try to write in a very simplistic way, general way, that it never reflects that it is a political science paper. So the first part, that the meaning of your conceptual understanding should be very clear and place it in the right place. Okay, this word, this is saying, it means this one. And the second part of the conceptual clarity is context. Context is most important part, and once you put the idea, out of the context, the meaning will be technically it's going to be changed basically. I'm just giving example. If Mill has been said, Mill has been accused of being reluctant Democrat, then this reluctant Democrat is in a particular context over there. Because his idea of democracy was for a particular socio-political and economic setup. He never said that this democracy will be implemented in any part of it. There is a particular setup. In that particular setup only, idea of democracy has been flourished. And wherever this particular setup is absent, for them he suggested additional, you can say, measures, or he suggested some alternatives. And once they become on the same setup, they can apply the democracy. This context, most of the time, while writing criticism, while writing answers, this context is missing. I have found in many copies, this context is a major issue. Look, I am giving another example. If a question has been asked, it is interpretation of any statement given by interpretation of any thinker's quote. So, in what context that quote has been said, it is highly important to understand. And if you criticize the thinker without making it putting it into the context, you can criticize anyone. You can criticize everyone in taking the modern context over there. But the thinker has said in some other context. I have seen in many books also, in criticism of Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, one general criticism was like such kind of historical situation never occurred. Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau never meant to that at any point of time such historical events occur over there. So it is, you are pulling the things out of context. Context is highly important. Now, when you evaluate a statement of any thinker, first explain the idea in that context over there. And now, apart from that context, is that idea is applicable, and if not, then talk about the limitation of that idea. It is not always necessary that you go with the idea of that thinker. If Lasky said that society is federal, so the authority should be federal. It is not necessarily though you go with the idea. In what context he has said? If he is talking, it is in the context of idea of sovereignty or a plural sovereignty, mention he is talking in that idea. He is not saying that all social institutions should have equal power to the state. He is not saying, and criticism of Lasky has been written in that way, because you are criticizing the Lasky, keeping him out of the context. He is talking about that all institutions of the society should have equal power over the state. It is just because the society is federal, so authority should be federal. It is not like that. So evaluation, explanation, whatever the thing is, that put the idea of thinker in context, and then you further move on. If that idea is not applicable, like I am giving another example, the criticism of this Aristotle idea of slavery, that he is a supporter of slavery. He was not at all supporter of slavery. He was supporter of slavery in a particular context over there. And the context was that slavery was already in the society, and he was aware of that. In just saying in one line, okay, what Plato said, every slavery is evil and it should be banned, it is not going to end the slavery. So he just opened the gate of you can just circulation of slaves from the normal citizen over there, giving certain ideas like behave should be good. That was the first step, because in the society behave with the slaves was also bad, atrocities was over there, and there was no way out of a slave to become a non-slave. He went for all these basic reforms. Technically, if I would say that Aristotle was the person who opened the gate for the slaves reform, that is true. Because he was the first person in the entire tradition who has given the idea how a slave could become a non-slave over there. What should be the standard behavior against the slave over there, and what is the relationship of slave and master, how it is beneficial for both each other. So somewhere he actually defined the idea of slave or position of slave in the society, where slavery was without, whether slaves are without getting any position, it was over there. So the context was very different, and this criticism outrightly talking about the Aristotle is something supporter of the slavery, it doesn't fetch mark. Basically, you just make him out of the context. So apart from, the first, as I said, this conceptual understanding. In conceptual understanding, this meaning, and the second part, as I said, that context. It is the second most important part of any answer writing. Now, the second important part of any answer apart from this one, as I said earlier, extension are those who carry forward the legacy. Those who carry forward the legacy of the same context. Need not to explain this in a 4 or 5 lines. Just in 1 or 2 lines you can talk about our name. As in the first answer, I have given the name of Herbert Marcuse. Nothing has been asked about related to the Herbert Marcuse. But as Gramsci said that if you want to bring a counter revolution, then definitely the civil society, alternative civil society institutions should be introduced over there, and the capitalist value system or common should be break. But later on, Herbert Marcuse said it is impossible to break it, because human being, which was a multi-dimensional, was a thinking man, now remain just one-dimensional, because the capitalist system by their all means erect those needs which could be easily satisfied with the market only. So technically the idea of revolution from above and idea of counter revolution is totally diminished over there. And then Nisbet has further taken it out, connecting with it to the Freudian idea. He said that forget about the revolution, now the biggest threat is that even the capitalist regimes, which seems to be little more democratic, now they are turning to be totalitarianism. This same idea has been extended till date. Nietzsche and all, they talk about, even Hannah Arendt, they talk about that, how the mass society, and these new thinkers connect it well with the idea of Freudian idea, Sigmund Freud basically, and they talk about that how people, because of the capitalist system and their involvement in the material aspect, they are going away from the social activity, public sphere activity, and finally it is imposing the threat of totalitarianism and dictatorship over there. The second part of your answer, that those who carry forward the legacy. Here you need not to explain in details. If you know the name, better if you know the name of the book and if you know the concept. Just 3 things is required. Whatever the question they have asked, I would say keyword. Like one dimensional man was a keyword, or key concept. Then keyword, key concept. If you know the name of the book in which it has been written, it is well and good. It will further extend your mark over there. That is the second part of your answer, just in 1 or 2 lines, where you will continue who carry forward the legacy of those things. And in every idea you can find, there are new thinkers who have extensively written about all thinkers, whether it is a liberalist thinker or it is the Grecian like Aristotle and Plato. There are many thinkers who have extensively written. At least know their name, know their book name and their keyword. It will fetch you 1 marks, 1.5 marks in every question. And that is the purpose. Like you have to increase just 25-30 marks to get in basically. Now the third important part you can find, if it is related to any school of thought, question is related to any school of thought, or question is related to some thinkers. Here you need to focus on the commentators, those who commented basically over the idea. Okay, let me give you some more idea. Suppose Plato has given the idea of justice, and you have well written what Plato says about the idea of justice. But again, this is just 40% of the total marks you have attempted the question. The idea of justice, how it has been viewed by the different later on upcoming thinkers over there. And you can find on the basis of that 2-3 school of thoughts will emerge over there. Or one school of thought keep on criticizing the idea of Platonic justice, then other you can find they are supporting. At least you know the commentators, those who support the ideas and those who oppose the idea. At least one name, one book, and what argument they has given. It will be the best if you know the same quote. If you don't know the same quote, even it is a fine. Okay, if you can mention that this Aristotle idea of Plato education policy has been properly supported by whom? The one modern thinker. Have you heard about Rousseau? Whatever the Rousseau said about the Aristotle, he has written his commentary over there. And even you can go further. The new thinkers also supported his education policy, like how the multi-phase education should be over there. I am simply saying that whoever the thinker is, that just go with a school of thought which is supporting that thinker and a school of thought which is opposing. At least 2-3 names. These are the value addition thing, and you have to make it like, okay, there is a separate notebook where you are making. One more thing, I am making it very clear over here. My idea is all about whatever you know, study less and how you can fetch good marks. It's not all about you making very knowledgeful and giving all the critical knowledge of the political science. It is not all about it. The ultimate end is that to score, and there is a model of scoring, and UPSC is not very thing which need a lot of academic knowledge, general understanding of the subject and awareness related to that subject should be over there. This awareness part is all about that you know what is going on in the modern political science over there, naming the naming, using keywords, and if you know where that person, there are many places like Oxford, still they are alive and they have written a lot of things. You can further talk about their debates. These people are worked a lot in the different arena. If you know their work and just mention that how they are complementing or how they are making changes in the other ancient political thinker or modern political thinker, that will be the best way. So one should know about the legacy, and it should be properly divided in 2 parts, those who support and those who oppose. Now in third important aspect you can find here, it is basically comparative mode. It is here basically comparative mode. Comparative mode, it means if it is not always that it is required, that comparative mode is always required. If it is required, then do compare whatever the question has been. I am just giving example. Suppose they ask about Rawlsian theory of justice. The question is related to Rawlsian theory of justice. Nothing wrong about talking about Amartya Sen here, there. Nothing wrong about. And similarly, if question has been asked, although they haven't clearly mentioned, but as things are more or less, the new ideas come against any idea, or you can to support some lacunas over there. So if you find anybody who is similar or making correction in there are little bit different, go with the comparative method. It always add 1 or 2 marks in your basic writings over there. So comparative mode is very important. There are some specific topic where comparative mode is must. When you are talking about state, the first topic, notion of state. What we did that in notion of state, there is a concept Marxist notion. You need to further dissection it. You need to go further analysis of Marxist notion of state, in which you have to talk about instrumentalist state, structuralist state, new structuralist state. These are the different notions of the Marxist notion of state. Even writing about the Marxist notion of state, these all three modes should be compared. These all three different sets should be compared. If you talk about the liberal state, even in liberal state you can find like pluralist state is there, neoliberal state is there, you can talk about them. So comparative mode within the frame of ideology, if you can mention the name of thinker, that will be the best one. Otherwise, wherever this comparative mode is required, that should be the part of your answer, specifically in political thought paper. So whatever you have studied, continue with this one, just little bit extension, value addition should be over there, and try to frame your answer. Last thing about political thought I would like to say, the terminology. It's always missing in the copies. And try to include terminologies, political terminology. So it should look like it is a political science paper. It should not be narrating a story. It is not talking about like what Aristotle said about justice. Most of the time it seems to be okay, he was the person who described something. It is not a description. And in simple way I would say, if anybody understand the term, they can easily define the ideology. If I say the relationship of terminology reflects to an ideology. What is the relationship between equality and liberty? If equality has been given priority, you can identify it as liberalism. If the equality has been given, you can identify it as basically Marxism. There is a way. So if you know the correct meaning of the different term and you know the connection of the different term over there, you can define half of the syllabus correctly, what exactly they are talking about. When we study about the human rights, in human rights, you can easily ask, if they are talking about, and I'm just giving examples. First, they talk about recognition of the right. Second step, they talk about this one, social rights over there. In social right, the entire people should be given equal, social identity should not be the base of discrimination in right. Once it has been done, then it's all about the political rights. People have right to choose their government. Once political right has been gone, now it moved to the economic rights, where we're talking about that they should be supported to become equal in the society. And now cultural rights is there. And the cultural right come with the new idea of development. They say that best of a person could be expressed in a particular cultural setup, what the multiculturalists say basically. So cultural right should be given over there, then only innovation and development could be over there. And not only the you can say efficiency, every time efficiency will be increased, because the multiculturalism idea is all about criticizing the efficiency. They said that the model capitalist system, it is just increasing the efficiency, putting people out of the context and providing all the material facilities, something like that. You are working, you are making software inside the AC room, just close to that there is a coffee a machine is there, or whatever the material requirement is there, it is a part of that basically. But the multiculturalism came in a different way. It doesn't facilitate basically innovation. It's totally based on the established idea, efficiency only. If you want to go for innovation, then you have to go for the cultural setups over there. And they have given extensively the different ideas. My point is that term and the correct term should be mentioned where it is required over there. So before moving into the other section, if anyone want to ask about the political thought, what should be written over there, or any kind of question you want to discuss, I can.
So
There is one book also, 50 Key Thinkers. 50 Key Thinkers, it is available on net. You can find all the basic thinkers they have given and even the name of the modern thinkers. Even you go for the one paragraph about the modern thinker, at least you can extract, okay, he is in the line of liberalism, Marxism, their key ideas and books. Just look, I am not saying to study the entire book, just name of the new, to which ideology they belong, their keywords, just get all these things, nothing else. Don't study any book entirely, don't study any book, just add on. This is what the value addition I am talking about. Any other question? Now, apart from, this portion, this political thought, this IGP section is another major section, and I believe that in IGP section there is a huge confusion. Most of the time people are stick with the idea of Indian constitution over there and how it should be written in the examination basically. Again, I'm just making a frame basically. As we all know that this Indian constitution is there, but this Indian constitution is all about to run the Indian society. To run the Indian society. When this Indian constitution has been applied over the Indian society, it makes certain trends over there. These trends should be well analyzed in context of the different approaches. Let me explain it properly. Like as I said, that Indian constitution has been made, and the idea why we are having a constitution, like how this country should be run, what are the different target constitutional assembly has defined, we have to achieve those targets. That was the basic idea. But once it has been applied, not necessarily it gives the correct result at what they assume in the Constituent Assembly. The classic example I give is the Ambedkar idea of one person, one vote. In the entire assembly debate, he argued that if the one person, one vote will be over there, in society it is going to establish the social equality. Because in society, in Indian society, the social inequality is there on the basis of caste and religion. People have a different weight in the society. At least politically, everybody should be equal, and in terms of power in upcoming year, the training will be in such a way that everybody will be equal. But once one person, one vote idea has been implemented, the result was drastic. The caste system, which was initially a social phenomena, it became a political phenomena. You can't find, before independence of India, the caste was not basis of fetching votes over there. You can't find in the initial year when the Congress was organizing people, or when the left started organizing people, these organizations were not on the basis of caste. In mobilization technology, in mobilization strategy, caste is not an important factor. Actually, caste become politicized when one person, one vote has been implemented. Now new political parties, political organization, and the what you call it, different equations like this caste equation started, and you can't find all these political phenomena or a character before independence. And there are so many elections, but you maybe on the basis of a religion was over there, but not on the basis of caste. My point is that whatever in the Indian constitution it has been given, when it get implemented, it always set a different trend over there. What we study, we should know the different trend, and whatever, whenever it has been implemented, we should know what kind of trend it has taken over there, what kind of trend political system development, what kind of political parties have, what is the basis of construction of political parties, what is their mobilization strategies are there. It should all be studied in the trends over there. Now, differentiate into a general studies and a student of political science. There are ample of scholars who studied this trend, and they have divided the trend in the sphere of, or in the category of the different approaches. I'm giving a name of book. You all have studied, I guess. This B.L. Faria book is there. The third or fourth chapter of B.L. Faria, approaches to study the Indian political system. The one chapter is in approaches to study the Indian political system. In that particular topic, they have talked about which kind of trend should be considered what. It is a functional one, or it is the integration one, or it is a realist one, or whatever the approach is there, the trend should be placed in what kind of approach is there. While writing your answer, first you should know that what are the different approaches of the Indian political system. You will be also able, if you understand the approaches, to connect it well with the trends. Okay, this trend with this approach, it is meaning of it is this one basically. So my point is that understanding of this approach is highly important. Now once you know the trends, then if these trends are not healthy trends, then what kind of initiative has been taken basically, to alter the change or to make it correct over there. Now this initiative have a range. It could be a government initiative and it could be a independent initiative. If the initiative has been taken by the society, normally we studied it into the category of social movements basically. Look, when the constitution has been made, they try to provide the solution of every problem. But when they found the trend, and the trend was going not meeting to its end over there, the government has also taken the initiative. Where government failed to take in the initiative, the civil society itself and the ranges of the social movement came into trend over there. You can find our society provide a lot of protection to the women, but finally it has been found it is not working, so independent women social movement started. Similarly, for the peasants and for the workers, our constitution have protectionary law for everyone, but it has been applied. When it has been applied, it was found that it is not working. So the social movement started over there. So you should know that if these trends are there, how these trends should be addressed and what kind of idea, I would say that how these trends should be addressed. It means that what kind of new initiative taken either by the society or taken by the different government initiative. Here we can talk about the government committees, name of the committees. Here we can talk about the government resolution. Like there is one question related to the women movement in India. I have went for 2-3 documents over there, which was some was civil society initiative and some you can find it is related with the government one. If government set a committee or if some initiative has been taken, then it should be mentioned to how to as a re-corrective measure these trends has been taken over there. And if government has taken some major changes in the constitution, then it will be in form of constitutional amendment. Then it will be always in form of constitutional amendment. If the trends according to trend, if government need to make changes in the Indian constitution. Similarly, according to the trends only, it is the Supreme Court that reinterpret or interpret the Indian constitution. While writing your answer is just a frame. While writing your answer, try to get it that the basic constitutional connection should be mentioned over there, and what are the different features of the society that made a different trend and how initiative has been taken to address those trends should be. Even it should be the part of your answer, making it more technically. If you know the approaches, you can mention this. There are many thinkers we can talk about, like Granville Austin is there, Alexander Pope is there. They have studied the Indian constitution as well as Indian society, and they have given the different approach how things should be taken or how things should be studied. I would simply say that if you want to update on these thinkers' way, even in Google you can find their latest writing, maybe by 80s or by 90s. Those writings, our conclusion was in 1950s or 60s, and their further extension in form of articles you can find in 90s, just 1-page or 2-page article. You can find their analysis, how they analyze the trend. Just, I won't say mug up, but just understand those trend in the idea, in the frame of the approach. That will consolidate your answer. And in paper 2, I would suggest there are certain areas which should be properly covered, because the way UPSC is asking these questions. For example, this social movement, that is the critical area UPSC is keep on asking. Again, don't confine what is given in the syllabus. Don't confine it when, just try to go beyond that when what is not mentioned in the syllabus basically. So social movement, new social movement, new social movement, you can get 1 or 2 questions from this area. And similarly in paper 2, first 4 topics, different perspectives of the national movement, Dalit perspective, Marxist perspective, radical perspective, you can find, and that is all related with the you can say a national movement. So one question you can find from this area. I mean, if these 2 specific topic has been prepared, then the 3 question is for sure you are going to get it. Just preparing these 2 topics over there. Now in between there are many things. One, as I said, that topic number 5 to 6, 7, 8 you can find till Panchayati Raj, it is based on this structure. It is totally based on this structure. Even in Panchayati Raj, women's participation, it is all related to this one. I mean, classic example, 73rd and 74th amendment has been made. In 73rd and 74th amendment, as a grassroots democracy experiment, and to increase or to ensure the women's participation, 33% reservation has been given. The trend was very different. On the behalf of the women, their husbands or the senior family members started participating in the Panchayati Raj. During the discussion, nobody expected at that time such kind of trend is going to take place. But this trend has taken place. Now, if this trend has been taken places, what kind of the initiative either by the civil society or by the government institution has been taken to address the issue? Here we can talk about the annual conferences, training programs, distribution of the literature, and apart from that, making code and conduct of the members over there, in which it was clearly defined that in the meeting there should not be any senior member or senior family member or husband. New rules and regulation has been decided just watching the trains over there. There is a very good book of Kuldeep Mathur. Like, don't study that book. I'm just giving the idea. Like, even in abstract, you can find he has given all the new trends about the Panchayati Raj institution in India. He specifically talk about that how Panchayati Raj institutions are developing as a mechanism, basically to mechanism of redistribution, are the things which the policy programs which has been allotted by the government over there. That is gradually increasing the participation of. You can compare it when the Balwant Mehta committee has been formed, and why it has been formed? Why it has been formed? Community development program. And one important thing they found, that the people participation was least in the community development program. And now the way this Panchayati Raj institution started working and the people participations are gradually increasing, you can find the difference what happened in 1950s and now what is happening over there. But again, there are so many issues related to the Panchayati Raj also. My idea is that we need to follow whatever the basics are there. That is true. What is written in the constitution, that is true. This trend is the key. For IGP section, this trend is the key. If you understand the trend, it will fetch you almost, in one question, the trend consists 25 to 30 marks over there. The basics also content has almost 20 to 25 marks is over there. And similarly, if you're talking in technical terms, in approaches over there, 10-12 marks, percent marks is there. And finally, initiative programs, it is the last part of your, it is another part which consists marks over there. So until unless in IGP section, you are talking about the basics, you are talking about the trends, you are talking about the new initiatives, and then you can further talk about the issue and challenges, or the issues remain which is unaddressed. Your answer won't be completed. Otherwise, every time we see the question in IGP and we feel very happy, okay, now I know this question, I can attempt it. But again, in terms of marks, most of the time marks of the students are from 180 to 215. This is the standard area where political science marks are fixed basically. And those who are scoring more than 225 and 30, technically, subject is not obstacle for them to going in basically. So what I am talking about is just extension from 225 to other, and just simple things are there. You need to value added over. This is all about paper 2, paper 1, section B. Any question related to this area? Any questions?
So basically when we are talking about the provisions relating to a particular thing, the trends relating to the same are to be mentioned on the same part or the later on in the question.
No, if you are starting with the basics, what constitution say, then it should be the immediate one. Okay, this was what the constitutional rules and regulation has been made over there, but when it has been implemented, these policy programs has been, the trend was like this over there. When I am saying trends, so here what you write in trends, basically what is actually happening, that you write in the trends. I mean, in general sense I said trend. If you are writing about Panchayati Raj institution, so you are talking about like women participation is not increasing as it was expected. Even self-help group, you can find the creation of self-help group on the basis of caste is still dominated in many areas over there. Still you can talk about only those who are dominant part of the society, their participation is much more than the other part of the section. This is what the trend is, that, but trend is in fact of in form of idea or fact, basically. So it is just up from there. And as I said, like, if civil society has taken initiative, our government has taken initiative, or both has taken initiative. That is why you should be aware of the new policy programs. And I would say that the policy and programs of the government taken from, because from 1950 onwards government has taken so many plans, basically. So many programs remain unsuccessful, or they have been closed later on. New program and initiative, if you can write about 2-3 old program, 2-3 new programs, civil society, and try to diversify, not only the government if you know the civil society initiative, that will be best. I mean, it is going to fetch half marks extra for you if you are diversifying your answer and not focusing on one side answer, basically. Is that clear? So anything else from this area? Environmental movement, I would say that environmental movement, then you can talk about the this is the new area you can talk about. Then similarly we can talk about student movements. We can talk about like one topic has been given, rights movement in India, human rights movement. Do you think that any specific human right movement started in India? Any human right movement, can you name human right movement in India? Any human right? I am simply saying, if you again analyze human right means what, that is the difference between the Western social movement and Indian social movement over there. Definitely, but right to information and all these, before that there are so many human right movement. Again, it was not a specific human right movement. When we talk about human right movement, we are asking about the many rights for everyone equally, it should be given over there. If I say in simple word, what about the workers movement and peasants movement? Can't be considered that some of the demand of the worker and peasant movement was more or less related to the equal human rights. If they are talking about equal wages, if you are talking about good working conditions, if you are talking about medical facility, can't be considered it as a human right movement. Then what should be you consider that what is human right movement? What kind of demand falls under the human right movement? It is in range. Look, there was no such acute inequality what was in India in West. That is why in India the human right movement has you can say a long range. It start, as I said, working to peasant movement, and now you can connect it with the idea of movement for the rehabilitation, or further connect to the environmental movement, or you can talk about the new LGBT movement, or you can talk about all these new things. The range is very high in India in case of the human right movement. Okay, one more thing I would like to ask. So any new social movement in India? Any new social movement in India? Anti-corruption movement. Now, there is a specific thing. Environmental movement is considered to be a new social movement. Generally, environmental movements are considered to be a new social movement. But in India, the trend for the new social movement is entirely different. All the movements in India except the few new movement is start only as a social movement, and later on it has been converted into a new social movement. There is a transition from social to new social movement. You can find this trend in all environmental movements over there. If you talk about the Chipko movement, that was mainly related to the livelihood of the local people over there. From where it started. If you talk about Narmada Bachao or Tihri Gadwal, it is all related for the rehabilitation. It was not initially to protect the environment over there. The basic demand of this movement was rehabilitation. That is somewhere related to the social movement. Later on, it has taken the shape of character of new social movement. So you can find in India, social and new social movement are clubbed at many places. And then there are some environmental movement which is purely new social movement. For example, if I say that pesticide in drinks over there, which was initiated by Sunita Narayan from CSC over there. If you talk about the initiative taken by Greenpeace about the bulb, replacing the bulb by LED bulbs, it was all purely, I mean, other one, when the Delhi High Court ordered for CNG buses in Delhi are the entire transportation. Then the court ordered that evacuate all the middle cities are the residential area, and all the industry should be shifted. It was a pure new social movement which has been taken, I mean, it started in form of new social and continuing in it. But in India, there are many movements which are clubbed over there. So whenever we study, we should know that where this overlapping is there. And you can find again, this overlap is because of the Indian society, the nature of the Indian society over there. The nature of the society is this way. So many social and new social movements are clubbed with each other. So anything else from this area? Now I talk about a very specific area which is considered to be very easy for everyone. But normally I didn't find that people are scoring good even in that area. That is India and world, specifically paper 2 section B. Paper 2 section B, that is the area which is also in general studies part. And most of the time we have this idea ki, okay, with the different websites and newspapers, everybody has idea of Indian foreign relation with the other country. I'm just making a simple frame how it should be studied and how it should be answered over there. Normally, the most of the time our focus in studying IR is basically related to the new events. Even in political science also, when we study, we study all the new things like visits, conferences, MOUs, treaties. Most of the time we focus on this area, and we found ourselves we are very updated, so we can write the answer. But again, I'm just giving a simple framework. Actually, when we talk about foreign policy making, this foreign policy making is totally based on the interest. This is a highly important thing to understand. What is the Indian interest basically in developing or evolving relationship with any country or with any region. So the very basic thing one should know, what is the Indian interest. And I would say that you can further classify the interest in further subdivisions. You can talk about security, strategic, defense interest is there. You can further talk about economic interest of India. You can talk about political interest of India. In every place, these interests are there. And in order to follow these interests, a policy framework has been designed. A particular policy has been designed. And in order to implement that policy, these things are there. What do you think? Prime Minister decided, okay, this week I am going to visit Australia. without any reason or purpose over there? Because it falls under the policy framework. What do you think? They go and negotiate with each other, and then they announce all the declaration. It is already decided, everything has been done. It was the formal announcement of those treaty MOUs. It's not like the skill of the prime minister or skill of the president. They are debating and convincing each other and making the deal. It is not. It is all decided. And why we have chosen to go over there? Because we find that there are certain Indian interests, and to pursue that interest, we also make a foreign policy. We make a policy options. We make a frame of the policy, and to implement that policy, these visits, MOUs or treaties are there. I'm just giving example. After 90s I'm talking about. After 90s, the frame of tackling the neighbors. What is the policy frame? What is the policy frame of tackling the neighbors? Whatever the Indian interest was in the neighborhood, in order to handle those interests, which policy has been formulated? Gujarat Doctrine. So, Gujarat Doctrine has been decided in 90s, and it is the framework to decide our relationship with the neighboring country. One point of the Gujarat policy is this: non-reciprocal response. If the other country is not responding in the same way, still we will respond. I am just giving example. Bangladesh is not ready to provide zero tariff to the Indian goods in Bangladesh. We are ready to provide. We have already provided 98% of our Bangladeshi stuff is on zero duty to the Indian market. It is framed with the Gujarat Doctrine, because here non-reciprocal, because the main idea is that we have to improve our relationship with the neighborhood. So policy framework has been already decided. What we are doing, that implementing those policy, whatever the points of the Gujarat Doctrine was there, it is implemented through economic tools, through political tools, sealing the different treaties over there. It is not something every government is designing something new. They are continuing with the old idea. Is that clear? Now the point is that what changes new government are some span of time introduced in this section. I would say that if 6 months has gone, you all started thinking that now we have to update because IR has changed. I would say it is neither the interest has changed, the policy has changed. What new things added? These visits and everything. So with the time frame of 6 months, look, you can divide the entire Indian foreign, Nehruvian foreign policy, Indira Doctrine, and then after 90s. It took almost the same policy framework continued in India for 15 to 20 years. It's continued in the same way. The changes comes in the visit, MOUs or treaties only. And what the new government do? New government only intensify the policy implementation. Invent a new tool for the further implementation of the policy framework. I am just giving examples. If Narendra Modi decided to visit 5 nations in 1 month, so it is not something that he signed any treaty or MOU that was beyond the framework over there. What is it that if Manmohan Singh was going just for 1 visit, he was quite fast in moving to the other countries over there. So the policy which was decided in 90s, it will be complemented, and maybe we can further make changes in the policy over there. Another example, new tools of the foreign policy. Before Narendra Modi, there are many prime ministers visited to the US, and once they visit to the US, what we do, they normally meet their president and other people and invite the representative of the Indian diaspora, because they are leading economic figures over there. They invite them and talk to them. Mr. Modi changed this trend. What he did, that he addressed the entire Indian diaspora in a ground. Now, it is the tool of the Indian foreign policy. Here he clearly reflected that the Indian diaspora in America is not only an economic factor, it is a political factor too over there. Such numbers could be mobilized in one direction, so they can change that who is going to be the next president. Maybe not overall, but there is. And if I say that somewhere, if Bobby Jindal wins the election, the trend will be the new one. So what he did new, he just introduce a new idea that the Indian diaspora could be used politically. I'll say the same thing. Why US reluctant to take action against the Israel? One of the reasons you can find that the Jewish population is not only the economic backbone of America, they hold the political power too. All the strong lobbies in the Senate are Jewish lobbies are there. So the new government changed nothing, like the policy towards America, which was initiated after the 90s by the government, it is continuation, is the same one. They intensified it, adopting the new tools basically. And they intensify by visiting and sealing the MOUs and signing the treaties over there. While writing your answer, if your answer contained bulk part of this, then this is one part of your answer. In general study, it might be possible defining it policy and interest in just 2-3 lines where you are focusing mainly on this, it's fine. But when it comes to the political science over there, then this is the major area, this is not basically. This is the major area, this is not the visit, MOUs and the other things over there. One more thing I would say that, we have a limited way of following and pursuing the foreign policy, and most of the time when we write about answer, our answer are confined to the economic, political and strategic one. I am just giving one more example, like example of soft power. India is also emerging. I am not talking about software, or I am not talking about India as a soft state. I am talking about soft power. So Indian soft power diplomacy is also emerging a very strong, one of the strongest tool to pursue the Indian foreign policy. But you cannot find it in the answer. And classic example of this, World Yoga Day. That was the classic master stroke in that sense. A new software policy India has, soft power policy initiated over there. Like, you can't define every time the movement with showing your arms and ammunition and showing your economic power. There is other way to convince them. And when your cultural mean, civilizational mean, your value system to create a goodwill or imagination basically, then it is also a way of pursuing foreign policy basically. In simple word, I would say that the other country, all other countries, specifically big power, pursue their foreign policy through soft powers basically. Why not before 90s everywhere Chinese restaurant are there? After 90s, why in every corner of this street you can find one Chinese? Even a kid of 2, 3, 4 years is aware of that what is Chinese. How it become? Why not the Ethiopian food? Why not the food of any other African country? Why Chinese food only? Again, it's an example of this. Once you come out of the hall watching a Hollywood movie, then what kind of impression you create in your mind? Most of the time, technologically advanced. Talk about their open society. You talk about their attitude and their value system. It gradually impacts us, and to a certain extent, we even adopt those attitudes. Just giving you one more example. Even our food chart, food menu, it is all has changed basically. If today I am simply saying that government of India bans many American MNCs, forget about the protest by those MNCs. It is we people will come out that how dare you to ban McDonald's or pizza over there. It is a violation of our fundamental right technically. My point is this, through soft power, there is a creation. And it is one of the strong policy to pursue the foreign policy. If I will say in simple word, why Pakistan banned the Indian movie, Indian music and Indian literature over there? Because it will shape the mindset of the Pakistan. Look at, think about us. Somebody is besides us, we are having tea, we are talking. The moment we know that he is a Pakistani, from here we will started thinking something else. Some will think, okay, I should call my all other friends also. So we'll teach him a lesson. What kind of impression you have your mind against that person? It is through the soft power you have developed. Whatever our media says or the other institutions say. So soft power play a very strong role in shaping of the foreign power. And these days, India is strongly using its soft power diplomacies over. In Afghanistan, introduction of, whenever you read this news, they signed a treaty to launching Indian channels in that way. You don't much pay heed to this one, but it's a part of your soft power diplomacy. We want to make them aware, look, this is how Indians are. If you talk about the India is a place of a magician, no, it's the place of yoga and other ancient medicines also. And the new kind of branding. Look at the Indian Babas. They are popular all around the world over there. Every Baba has an ashram in part of the world. And that is true. It is just because, again, it could be used and capitalized properly to proper channelize your foreign policy. And I would suggest him, In case of our neighboring states, when we are writing about the South Asia, Central Asia, further to the Southeast Asia, most of the time we revive our cultural tie. Whenever the foreign policy, revival of the cultural tie. What is this revival of the cultural tie? Soft power. When we talk about a student exchange program, soft power. When we talk about to fund their educational institution, fund their magazine, it's all about soft power. We keep on organizing conferences, soft power. So we can make our image. Normally, again, in Marxist terminology, I would say that they say it is politics of imagination. This is what they say. It is a politics of imagination. Really it is happening or not, but you create the image in such a way that you seems to be it is happening. And really it shapes. And look, the Western world shape us like anything. Look, maybe we are not. But the upcoming generation, those who watch Ben 10, those who watch Doraemon, although Chota Bheem is still fighting. But the point is that if this new generation will come up with these, watching these people, how can they say anything against them basically? Their ideals, their way of thinking, it will be all shaped with them. You can't imagine, I mean, parties. Initially we offer for the parties, then those who are veg and non-veg, normally the food is there. Now in everything, pizza, burger, all the new things coming in the parties are there. It was never part of that. Look at the influence and why everybody has a deemed destination. America is there, Las Vegas is there. Why such kind of destinations are there? I mean, why not think, okay, we'll go to the Africa. I mean, I'm not saying to go to the Africa, but there are other good places in Europe too. There are very good places in going to Europe too. But we always think about the Americans. The answer lies is that they shaped us. You can connect it well with the Gramscian idea. When you talk about the hegemony, it was extended in that way. The capitalist value system became a common sense of life basically. And we started following those lives. My point is that whenever you are writing about the India world, try to divide the entire answer in these frames. Now one more thing regarding this one. While writing your answer, either bilateral or multilateral ways, you can further consider it. I would say that you can further term it in the approaches, in the policy approaches. If I say in Asia Pacific region, listen carefully, in Asia Pacific region, Indian relationship with the China at the same time with the US. You can find in Asia Pacific region. You all understand what I am talking about? Asia Pacific region, from Japan to the Australia I am talking about. In this entire region, Indian approach you can find is twofold. On one hand, in terms of security and politically, we are moving towards America. We are the part of their pivot to Asia policy. You can find recently, from 2001 onwards, we are participating in Malabar exercises. You can finally find out there was a meeting of Pacific Islands in India in August 22-23. Which place? It's Jaipur. It was just 22-23 August. Why not before that such kind of meeting take places? Why there was an oceanic policy? Why Modi visited towards all island countries over there? It all has a meaning. It's not meaningless. It all has a meaning. My point is this: in the Asia Pacific region, India is trying to consolidate its political and security position. In order to do so, we are collaborating with all major power like Japan. I mean, recently we signed a naval cooperation treaty with Australia. I guess 15 days back with the Thailand. Before that with the Vietnam. With all these countries, we are more or less pro-US. We have our security and defense and political relationship. But simultaneously in the same area, we are supporting and being part of those organizations which is economic in nature and propagated by the China. AIIB, you can find what is the stand of America against the AIIB. What Japanese talk about the AIIB. RCEP, what the Americans and Japanese say about the RCEP. Economically, we are joining the Chinese, but politically, we are joining the Americans. Look, there is some policy formulation because of the. I'm just giving the framework. If you talk about in terms of realism, what the Morgenthau and their later on thinkers said, in order to pursue your interest, like absolute gain and the other party's relative gain, you can connect with this idea how these ideologies or theories are well implemented in the different part of the world. My point is that while discussing India and world, if you can provide the frame, like the Indian policy in this area are more or less influenced by the realist framework by giving the example. If you talk about in United Nations, India is following functionalist framework. If you're talking about in West Asia, we are more or less going with the idea of realism only. In case of this one, South Asia, we are following the policy framework of integration theorist over there, that will plus 1 marks over there. So my point is that when you write about the India word, now 3 things: policy framework, look in paper 2, you can find there are many students, out of 250 they score around 139, 140 and 142 over there. Even I know my own younger brother, in fact he scored around 131 in paper 2, and simple reasons are there: policy framework, interest, policy and vision. You can't find gap. What else to be written over there? You can't find gap. If you know the policy framework, if I say that Indian policy in West Asia, you can analyze properly with Iran, with Afghanistan, with Israel is a classic example. There are so many differences with Israel on the Palestinian issue, but still defense relationship is there. Again, the classic example of the relative gain is there. The classic example of there are so many examples. While writing answer, if you give this policy framework, plus 1 marks. And this is the, I won't say most neglected part, but it is not as much as important as the other parts are there. So even if you are not updated, if you are missing 1, 2, 3 visit, then it is fine. There is no issue about this one. If the question has been formulated like in the recent visit to Australia, civil nuclear deal has been signed. In this context, suppose in this context the Indian approach to the Asia Pacific, analyze the Indian approach to the Asia Pacific, you can talk. I am just giving one more question. If I say Indian Navy is taking the front seat of the Indian foreign policy, analyze. I repeat my point. Indian Navy is taking the front seat of the Indian foreign policy, analyze it. You can find at the time of Indira Gandhi, it was the Indian army that played a very significant role, either in creation of Bangladesh, fighting with Pakistan, or later on in peacekeeping forces. There are many places. But the new area of Indian foreign policy, whether it is the Southeast Asia or West Asia or in the West Pacific area, it is the Indian Navy that is playing. And now, if you remember it, whenever we move to these area, whatever the MOU we sign over there, one naval cooperation you can always find. One line of naval cooperation you can always find there. And the Indian Navy is getting strength. It becoming a key tool in developing its relationship with the different Pacific nations, Southeast Asian nation, in West Asian water or Indian Ocean water. Recently we are signing so many maritime joint exercises, trilateral maritime exercises with all. Rarely now we are moving towards the Indian army and they have signed that. Most of the time it is the other part, naval part, because these are the new area of the Indian foreign policy and Navy is taking the front seat over. With the example, you can talk about maritime, new found India's maritime policy. There could be a question about the maritime diplomacy in Indian Ocean, maritime diplomacy in Asia Pacific region, maritime diplomacy in West Asia, because these days maritime diplomacy become a very important tool of the Indian foreign policy. These are the new areas and new things, but again it is all related. If I am talking about the maritime diplomacy, in 2000, way back 2005 only, Indian Navy released a white paper in which they have defined their area of interest. Their area of interest was from Arabian Sea to South China Sea. It is officially defined by the Indian side. So if you are defining your interests up to the South China Sea, that intention is very clear. We are going to be engaged with the China, with the Australia, with the Japan, and in order to engage with them, we should have very strong Navy. Without that, it is not possible. So my idea is a very simple one. In case of India and world, if you follow this policy framework, and definitely you are going to score good. Few more things I would suggest that while preparing for mains exam, it's not possible for everyone to prepare equally all the topics over there. You need to decide that which is your strength. Maybe political thought, maybe India and world, maybe IGP. And you need to make earlier frame only, ki okay, I am going to attempt 3 questions from this area. You can't decide it at extempore or at the time of exam. Sometimes we find it here, we didn't get. It is just because we missed some topic. So ensure that one portions, every topic should be completed in all extended ways over there. I mean, if you are studying India and world, every and each topic in depth. So it must be sure their question, I mean, whatever they ask, you should be in position to answer that. You can further divide, like if we talk about paper 2 section 1. In paper 2 section 1, you can easily divide the syllabus. I am pointing out one IR theory paper. Then one you can find major global issues are there. One comparative politics, in which pressure groups and political parties and the approaches to the comparative politics is there. One concepts are there, like balance of power, collective security, and one more is there, and that is related to the third one. In all 5 sections, you can have this liberty to leave 1 or 2 section and complete 3 or 4 section. It is a fixed. One question from theory part, it is a fixed. One question from conceptual part, it is fixed. One question from global issue, it is fixed. And one question from third world politics, maybe deformed polyarchy or overdeveloped state. These questions could be asked from there. So you can properly plan it. India and world, it is just because part of the IR section, I mean GS part 2, that should be fully completed, and try to face 3 questions from this area and 2 questions. And even if out of 5 question, if sub question of any question you fail to attempt, even then I am saying your marks is not going to be hampered much over there. Even people, I mean students left 1 or 2 questions, but still they managed to score near about 240, 245 over there. It is most important thing, again I am saying, quality of the answer, because every section or every part of the answer has given a marks over. Just writing all the question in a general way, writing 3 question in a proper way, it is a equal marks. So in general studies also you can find they have written a line. It's not about the words, it's about the quality of the answer. In every section it is the quality of answer. Even you miss one part of any answer question, you need not to be worried about that. It's not going to drastically reduce your mark. Maybe 2-3 marks are there. But if you attempt a qualitative answer, in every answer you can improve around 2.5 marks. So it is almost I would say 2.5 marks. It's like 10 marks in every section. In normal sense, you can improve almost 20 to 30 marks in a normal way, basically, without studying anything extra. Again I am saying that don't study anything extra. Whatever you studied, just rely on that. Just value addition is there. Okay, questions from your side? Any questions? No questions? So I should accept this, like you all understood what I tried to communicate it, and as in my first line assumed you all have a good knowledge of political science, so now problems are addressed over there. Now in our answer sheet, I try to formulate, although I missed 2-3 things over there like comparative approach and all, but most of the time I try to cover what I told in the what I teach in the class over there. And if you take it as a, I won't say it is a excellent model answer, but if you take it as a model answer, it is going to address many problems over there. One question students usually ask to me, like it is a paragraph wise, it is a point wise. Please write paragraph plus point wise. if you write the real content in the answer, so it is in the paragraph or it is in the point, it has no meaning. Why I should prefer point wise? The reason is that you can't I mean you can say you can't fool examiner. When we prefer to write paragraph wise, we have just 2 things, 2 important facts we are knowing that, and we have to write 1 paragraph. So we will use our all literary language and knowledge and connecting by using extending sentence. It is not required. If you know the 2 things, just 1 sentence, 2 things, it will fetch equal marks even if you are writing 1 paragraph. Because in model answer, UPSC even provide that marks is well allotted. If you don't find that content, so whatever 3 pages, 5 pages, it has no meaning at all. So if you can write in paragraph, that is going to be the best one. मेरे पास नहीं है. I am not that much well connected. I mean, there are many people who are well connected. They can talk you about the cutoff list. They can talk about the internal sources. I am just normal man like you. There is nothing extra I'm having.
There was news that somebody has got some model answers.
Mr. Manoj Jha, he initially was covering this UPSC when he was in media. So he has some certain model on certain model answer of certain questions. So you can contact him. The last thing what I am trying to say here, I mean, I'm going to say like my test series program. In my test series program, I have designed it in a very different way. Like on every Saturday, we have a test. Before test, there will be one class on Friday. That will be 3 to 4 hour class. In that particular class, I will talk only about the value addition. I am not going to talk about the basics one, because I am assuming you all have studied basic very well. You all have studied basics very well. Only I will focus on the value additions. After this 4-hour class, next day there will be a test, and on the date of the test there will be a discussion. So what we have studied in our Friday class, what you have written in Sunday morning test, it will be all, I mean, not on the same day, because when you appear for the test this year, this first test, then in second test discussion will be on the same day. So here in discussion section, what should be in the written, wherever you are missing, I mean whatever you have missed your answer, we will discuss about that, and where we can further add something. And whatever the notes I am going to provide, again it is not going to be the basics. Just 1 page or 2 page notes will be there, and it is more or less related to the new thinkers, it is related to the value addition what I am talking about. It's all related to this one. Again I am expecting basic one. What we can discuss here about the basics, like what not to be studied in the basics, we can talk about this one. And again I would suggest you all have well read the subject, so do one thing, delete some unimportant information. Like for political thinkers, I have seen many students have studied J.P. Sudha also, Ramaswamy also, IGNOU also. The same thing is written every time in all these books. One book, even the BA level course book is fine. People are scoring with the BA level book. There is nothing, because the concept is clear in BA, and you clear your concept of what the book has written. The difference in these books is the use of technical terminologies. In BA book, less technical term is there. In IGNOU material, more technical term is there. That's the only difference. Otherwise, concept are, the same.